Little People, Big Dreams, Tenzing Norgay, written by Maria Isabel Sanchez Vegara. Once in Nepal, there was a boy called Tenzing. He was a member of the Sherpas, a group of people who had lived under the great Himalayan mountains for centuries. He grew up in the foothills, and as he took care of the family's yaks, he always looked up high. One mountain towered above all others. Its name was Chomolungma, and it was so high that some said no bird could fly over it. Tenzing dreamed that one day he would go all the way to the top and touch the sky from its peak. He was only 7 when he heard about the Chalina Na, the man from the west. They were hiring Sherpas to go on an expedition to climb Chomolungma. They said it was the world's highest summit, but they called it Everest. Tenzing would have given all he had to join them, but he was too young for such a dangerous trip. 11 years later, the news of a second expedition arrived from Darjeeling, and he decided to walk all the way to that far Indian town. Darjeeling was sparkling with excitement as the Europeans arrived. Many people traveled there hoping to get a job. But sadly, Tenzing wasn't chosen to join the expedition. He was heartbroken, yet determined to keep trying. 2 years later, there was a new expedition to Everest, and only experienced Sherpas who had climbed before were picked for it. But at the last minute, 2 more people were needed, and Tenzing was noticed for his bright smile. Tenzing learned to use ropes, cut steps on the ice, and set camps on the snow. And even though he went higher than he had ever been before, when the time came to go back home, he just wanted to keep going. He joined countless expeditions: Sherpa, French, Indian, Swiss, English, Nepalese. For Tenzing, all mountaineers in the world were his family. On the highest peaks, facing avalanches, blizzards, and freezing temperatures, they were all just human beings helping one another. Tenzing became a renowned Sherpa and was nicknamed the Tiger of the Snows. For the next 20 years, he crossed the Himalayas from side to side and climbed mountains even farther away. Yet Chomolungma was always on his mind. 6 times he failed to climb it. 6 times he went back. And every time his reputation grew. He was 39 when he joined his seventh expedition. Almost 400 people took part. Yet only 2 men were lucky to make it up to the highest peak. On May 29, 1953, Tenzing and Edmund Hillary made it to the summit of Everest. But those who had tried before them were there too in Tenzing's thoughts. Many had given their lives so that the 2 men could stand on top of the world. He came down as a hero. In Kathmandu, the king granted him the Star of Nepal. And in New Delhi, the Indian Prime Minister gave his own clothes for Tenzing to wear during his visit to Queen Elizabeth in England. And if there was ever a bond between a mountain and a child, it was between Chomo Longma and little Tenzing. the Sherpa, who, by looking up to Everest with love and respect, became one of the most celebrated mountaineers of all time. Tenzing was born in May 1914. He lived in the shadow of Chomolungma, also known as Mount Everest, which is the highest mountain in the world. One of the 13 children, his parents named him Namgyol Wangdi. But a Buddhist Lama suggested that change it to Tenzing Norgay, which translates as a wealthy, fortunate follower of religion. Tenzing had an adventurous spirit and dreamed of reaching the peak of Chomolungma. At 19, he moved to Darjeeling, India, the home of many expert mountaineers. In 1935, Tenzing was hired as a guide for a research expedition on the mountain. Although they didn't make it to the top, it was the first of many Everest climbs for Tenzing. Nearly 20 years later, he was hired as a mountaineer for a British expedition to the mountain. It was his seventh climb. Among the party climbing alongside him was Edmund Hillary, a mountaineer from New Zealand. Out of almost 400 people, Edmund and Tenzing were the only two to reach the summit. They stood on top of the world at 11:30 a.m. on May 29, 1953. Tenzing was awarded the Star of Nepal and the Padma Bhushan, the third highest civilian award in India. He went on to train South Asian children in mountaineering skills and provided scholarship for their studies. He was 64 when he established a trekking company that to this day helps people to climb the Himalayas. In Sagarmatha National Park, there is a memorial statue honoring Tenzing's achievements. The little boy with the adventurous heart grew up to be a hero to all those who reach for the highest peak. The end.